Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer!
Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it!
Here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
Welcome to the Arsenal Vision live YouTube show. My name is Elliot Smith, and we're here. We're on the brink of a new season. It is all very, very exciting. Until it isn't. But for right now, it's all very exciting. It's been a hell of a window, and we're going to discuss the window that was. We are going to discuss the season that will be, and of course, what will inevitably be a quadruple winning season, if you can count any of the trophies we are in as a quadruple winning season, is Andrew. You can find him on Twitter at Arseblog, of course. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Elliot. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? I assume we are streaming, by the way, right now, so... You know,
I can see you, that's for sure.
Well, good. And now everybody can see you. And I don't know if you can see the graphic underneath you yet. It should pop
Not
up
yet.
shortly. And it says, OMG, it's Arseblog.
Oh,
So,
yeah, there it is.
there it
I
is.
see it. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, good to have you.
Yep.
So,
Good stuff.
I guess the first thing we have to do is say, like, what was the experience like for you to actually be a part of a transfer deadline day that was relevant? A cromulent transfer deadline day, as you might say.
Cromulent. I mean, we have had some. It's not like we've never had a transfer deadline day that's been rubbish, you know. Well, okay, they've turned out rubbish, but we have made signings in the past. You know, we've brought in such luminaries as Shkodran Mustafi and Lucas Perez and Danny Welbeck on deadline day in the past. Andrei Arshavin was a deadline day signing, wasn't he? But that was a winter window. So it's, I guess... The fact that we brought in a player we all wanted on deadline day is a really interesting thing, and that's Kieran Tierney, obviously. David Luiz, maybe not everyone's first choice, but the more you got your head around the comedy of it, the more it kind of made a bit of sense. So I'm pleased with the way deadline day went, and I think obviously we've got some room to move people on in the coming weeks because the window's still open across Europe.
There may be the odd player that we need to move on. And in fact, we might have one of them on the show later to talk a little bit about what they expect from themselves this season.
Okay.
Look, I think, Andrew, that we have to at least give credit where it's due to the man who seems to have delivered, and that is Raul Sanllehi. I have not always been in his corner, as you might say, but this is something that I found on the Reddits. I think it is quite clever. Good evening, fellas. Raul, you know, look, he didn't have a technical director for most of this window. He had Sven's, probably the spreadsheet Sven printed out on his way storming out of London Colney. So how do you feel about Raul in terms of, you know, making it count when it matters?
I'm getting a Raul tattoo.
Are you?
That's what's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely. Just going to get it all across my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Big fucking Raul on my tits.
I mean, that's what I came here for. I mean, to be fair, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, look, I think like you, I sort of had the skepticism, mostly because I think we've become used to that. You know, we hear and have over the years, we've heard a lot from Arsenal executives talking about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it and how they're going to get us this place and that place. And Raul not only has come in and talked the talk, he's walked the walk. So, you know, we have to give the man credit for a summer. He took the responsibility. You know, when he outmaneuvered Sven, that was him taking the burden, wasn't it? That was him saying, look, this is me. This is on me. For a while, it didn't look like he was going to get it done. But, you know, when you go through the window and you think about the business that we've done, I listened to the start of the podcast where you guys gave the transfer window a grade. And, you know, everybody's pretty pleased with what he's produced.
Except that negative Nelly Clive, who gave it like a B.
You know, he's always so negative.
He's just doomy. But you know what? He's part of the group, so what can you do? All right, well, let's do this. What do you say we go through some of the big deals from deadline day? And obviously, one of them, I think, has to be said, is the one that came in right at the end. We did get David Luiz. And, I mean, given the situation... Oh, that's not David Luiz. I'm sorry. How did that get in here? I mean, it's basically David Luiz.
What am I saying? I see. It hasn't popped up on my screen yet.
You'll see it there. Oh, they're basically the same thing. But in terms of like getting a defender, which was something that we had to do. I mean, do you think this is the barest minimum of getting a defender? Or do you feel slightly optimistic about it?
I feel a bit more optimistic about it than I thought I was going to be honest. I thought my first initial reaction was just, what the fuck? What, where is the imagination? Where's the planning? Where's all of it? But, he is a Premier League experienced player, 32, which is, not the first flush of youth, but still not over the hill when it comes to central defenders in particular. He's a very good footballer. He's really brilliant on the ball. I don't think anybody can dispute that. There are just elements to his game that we've seen over the years which have given him a reputation for sort of clownishness a bit. So if we can somehow not add our own clownishness in defense to his, therefore creating a mega clown.
Mega clown?
Then I think
we already have a mega clown, and I think you know who I'm talking about.
I think so, but you know what I mean. I think maybe it's just preseason optimism, but I think it might well be a signing that sort of fills the gap. You look at what we've done this summer with Martinelli, with Tierney, Ceballos. I know he's only here for a year. Pepe. Saliba, who's going to come in next year. There's a very obvious push towards reconfiguring the age, the average age of the squad, right? We're going younger. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we can just go completely young without having some experience, and along the way you're going to need some stopgap players, and I think that's kind of what he is.
Do you think, given the choice, that he would kill Bart Simpson?
I think he would kill Bart Simpson. Yeah, I think he would be right to as well.
Oh my goodness, we're learning all kinds of things.
Bart needs to know when to call it quits. Let's face it, he's been going on too long. He hasn't aged a bit, and I think there's something quite sinister about that. So if David Luiz could kill Bart, then fine. I'm okay with that.
All right, so
we'll always have the good episodes.
Let's talk about the other guy that we did acquire on deadline day, and that is someone who looks like maybe, I don't know, he could be your son. He looks so boyish and adorable, but quite a tigerish attacking left-sided fullback. We needed left back. I think going into this summer, a lot of people said that left back was a priority, and we've done it. I mean, how do you feel? Do you have any concerns about what we paid for this? The way the transaction dragged on, his injuries. I mean, there's certainly question marks, but it does feel like we've gotten a value, especially when you look at like Wan-Bissaka going for $50 million United.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of where the marker is. If Wan-Bissaka, after one season in the Premier League, is a £50 million player, what would you have to pay to get a left back who's had a good season in the Premier League? He is obviously a player that we've bought for the long term. So while the injury is a bit of a pain because he's going to be 6 weeks before he's fully fit and ready to go. So you're looking at the far side of the international break, mid-September, coincidentally when we might get Rob Holding back as well. He is definitely going to add something to the team because not only is he good going forward, he's a left back who defends. And I think Nacho, in his pomp, was a left back who could really defend. I don't think the legs are quite what they used to be. And Kolasinac is sort of most effective when he's hulking into the opposition final third. And as a defender, I think he leaves a lot to be desired. So it's an issue that they really wanted to get solved. Tierney, if you watch the videos, and I spoke to somebody for the Arsecast as well, he's a big Celtic fan who's absolutely gutted that he's gone because he's such a good player and he's a Celtic boy and everything else. He is somebody who could be our left back for years to come. So £25 million might seem expensive now, but if we get 7-8 seasons out of him, it's not very much at all.
And the one thing I can say is I have had quite a few hernia surgeries. So would you like me to show you on my body? No? You don't want to? No?
Yes, please.
So
we'll get banned for erotic content.
Erotic or stress-inducing. Yeah, exactly. No, I will say, though, that those injuries don't worry me so much. The osteitis pubis or whatever it is, because it just sounds exotic and scary, is a little worrying. But ultimately, I mean, you look at fullbacks, and last season, whether it was Kolasinac or Nacho on the left or Maitland-Niles, Jenkinson, and Lichtsteiner on the right, you would have said that fullback stroke wingback was potentially a liability area. And also one of the reasons that we played the back three a lot. And in Bellerin and Tierney, if they, get fit and playing a lot, you'd have to say that we'd have an argument for maybe third best fullback platoon in the league, that fullbacks become a real strength for the team. And that's a nice change from last season.
Yeah, in fullback, certainly. I think there is potentially the makings of a good back four there when everybody gets fit, when Bellerin is fit, when Tierney is fit, when Holding is fit. So, yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself, though, in terms of our defense, because I think when you look at our squad, it's easy to see how good we are in attack. It's easy to see how much choice and depth we have in the center of midfield, whereas it's not quite so easy to see something work and function at the back. And it might come together. I'm sort of reminded of the summer where, we put Kolo Toure alongside Sol Campbell, and we had Lauren at right back, and Ashley Cole, and that felt very makeshift at the time, but it did an amazing job. So you just don't know what's going to come together. My hope with the defense is that we do find something that works, that we can field on a fairly consistent basis, because I think that was a big problem last season, just not being able to field the same back four for more than 2 or 3 games at a time.
Yeah, I agree. And I have to say just really quickly that you have like a very lovely looking studio environment there. I have what I like to call affectionately a pile of shit back here.
I've got all that. It's just off camera.
Just off camera, yeah. I didn't do the professional thing and clear pile of shit, but trust me, there's more of it. There's really nowhere to put it at this point. One thing that I think has been sort of a contentious point at deadline day, which was mostly kind of exciting, is I'm going. All right, what am I supposed to do? Trigger warning. I'm going to put a picture on the screen now.
Okay.
And I don't think people are going to super love it. Can you super love something? I think you can super like something on YouTube. So yeah, this is Alex Iwobi wearing an Everton shirt. It's not something that a lot of people are excited to see. I don't know that we want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but it was quite the energized debate online yesterday about selling Iwobi for what appears to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40 million. So first of all, as far as just the business end of it, purely free of emotion and sentimentality, how do you feel about the sale and the fee?
I think it's pretty good, to be honest. I think it's a reasonable fee for a player who maybe hasn't quite kicked on as much as we would have liked. I don't think the criticism that he got or was subjected to was often fair. I think he became a bit of a target. I can understand why he frustrated people, but I think people overlooked the fact he was only 22 years of age. He's only just gone 23, I think. So from a business point of view, we've sold pretty well, I think, this summer. And Iwobi, if we end up getting somewhere in the region of 35, 40 million pounds for Iwobi, I know some of it is based on appearances, and there are other clauses and what have you that will add that up. But I think it's a good chunk of money, and I think we had to get a chunk of money in this summer because we spent big on Pepe, we spent big on Saliba, we spent big on Tierney, we spent on David Luiz, we paid a loan fee for Ceballos, we spent money on Martinelli. And the budget, whether people wanted to scoff at that or not, there was this weird thing, wasn't there, when we started doing all this, where people were saying, well, look at what Swiss Ramble said. What does he know? What does Swiss Ramble know about?
Turns out everything.
It turns out that he's fucking spot on, basically, as he always is. And the estimate of what we had to spend, I think, when you add up what we've spent versus what we've brought in, I think you'll find that probably it's somewhere in the region of 40 to 50 million pounds. So it felt inevitable that we were going to have to move somebody on. I think they would have liked to sell Mkhitaryan before Iwobi. Potentially, they might have wanted to sell Ozil before Iwobi, potentially. I think they definitely wanted to sell Mustafi. And they might still do that. They might still do Mustafi and whatever. But, when a Premier League club comes calling on deadline day and offers you 30 million pounds, rising to 40 million pounds for a player who, while effective and potentially could have been a better player, I don't think we're necessarily short of options to fill his role in the squad. Not this season.
Yeah.
But maybe going forward, he might be a player that we think, oh, could have done with keeping him. But, you make those decisions, and I think money played a part in the decision making here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole idea yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm asking you, what do you think of it?
So first of all, the whole idea of like preferring to sell Mkhitaryan, I'd prefer to sell an 85 Honda Civic for $75,000 and keep the Mercedes. But I don't know that anybody wants to buy a 30-year-old, 200,000 pound a week fading Mkhitaryan for 35, 40 million pounds. I don't know that anybody wants him on those wages to begin with, least of all Arsenal. So, I look, of course you prefer to sell your distressed assets before you sell your quality players. But I think when you consider that Iwobi is our record transfer fee received for a sale, it just shows you how far behind we've lagged some of the other clubs in terms of converting assets into cash that can be used to rebuild the squad. I mean, Liverpool lost Luis Suarez, Raheem Sterling, Philippe Coutinho, and they are a better team now than they were then. And there was some pain associated with those moves, not the Coutinho one so much, but those moves were absolutely fundamentally crucial to building the squad they have now. Is Alex Iwobi starting for a team that's contending for the Premier League or contending for the Champions League? I just think he's a tier below that. And as a result, if you can get a really good fee for him and give the next generation of academy players a chance, I think you have to do that. And here's another thing too. The player factors into it. He played 2,000 minutes last season, thereabouts, in the league. And I look at it this way. Pepe is going to play a lot, right? You don't spend that much unless he's going to play a lot. We know that Emery wants to play Oba and Lacazette a lot together. Whether we agree with that approach or not, he wants to do it. When you combine that with the fact that Mkhitaryan will get some minutes, Ozil will probably get some minutes as a wide forward, that Nelson and Saka and Martinelli look like they're poised to get some minutes, Iwobi could have been an 1,100-minute player this season or a 1,000-minute player this season, which is a big step down from his last 3 seasons. The player may have said, in light of that, I'm comfortable moving. So you just don't know how these things shake out. I mean, overall, the emotional side of it, the sentimentality side of it, it's absolutely sad to see an academy player go. I also don't understand the argument that somehow we've failed our academy player because, to me, here's a guy who came up from our academy, got put into the first team, was given lots of chances, lots of starts, played 2,000 minutes last season. He's going to be 24. He's moving on to a good club, on a good fee, on a good wage. We've done right by him, and I just don't see how that's letting him down, Andrew. I think this is good for the club. This is probably good for the development of the player. If he goes on to be a superstar, great for him. But I think we've seen that he has a ceiling that might just be below where we want to go.
I think you're right there. I don't think Arsenal have done anything but make Alex Iwobi's career. Now he's obviously done it with his own talent and his hard work and everything else. And he was given an opportunity. He took it and he became a fairly regular first team player for Arsenal. That is kind of the point of the academy, though. If a player comes in and I've spoken about it on the Arsecast, and I've heard you guys speaking about it, that if a player becomes part of your first team and doesn't quite make the grade, the fact that he's got a load of first team minutes means he's more valuable in the market. So you've Alex Iwobi going for £30 million, whereas someone like Jeffrey Adelaide, because he didn't play any minutes, went for £1 million or whatever it was. I'm not saying the Jeff is a £30 million player or anything like that, but the fact that these guys are get first team exposure increases their value, particularly when they're an academy product who hasn't cost us anything apart from what we've spent to develop him and his wages and everything else. The other thing I'd say about Iwobi as well is I kind of feel like, and I don't mean this to be critical in any way of him, but he's been at the club since he's 9 years of age, and I think he's comfortable at Arsenal. And again, it's not to be critical. I just, maybe for his own sake and for the sake of his career, coming out of that comfort zone where you know everybody, where it's local to you, where you can just skip gaily into work every day. Maybe the fact that you're changing your scenery and going somewhere different, you're going to have to forge new relationships and convince new people that you should be in the team. Maybe that's going to be good for him. Maybe that will help him step up another level in his career. So I wish him well. I think he's a good guy. I think he did good things for us. He didn't quite maybe kick on as much as we would like, but I hope he has a great time at Everton.
You want to give out some grades?
Some grades, okay.
You're familiar with the letter grade system that we have over in this ridiculous country?
Well, we have it here too. You know, you go to school and you get, you do exams, you get grades. Yeah.
So they have school over there. That's encouraging.
We do.
Okay.
Good. We do. Yes.
All right. Well, let's do the. Maybe we need more.
Even speak English sometimes.
Could use a little more school everywhere, I would argue. But all right, let's do this. Let's give some grades to the groups. We'll start with. We're gonna get good evening off the screen here. We'll start with the goalkeepers. Not much to say here, but it's Leno and Martinez. What do you give this as a grade for a goalkeeping group?
I think probably a B, because Leno was very good last season, and I don't really have any worries for him going into the new season. I do have some slight worries about Emi Martinez in that, at 26 years of age, he's never played regular football anywhere. He had a good loan spell at Reading last season, which I think is good for us, because I'd be a bit more worried about him. He does look quite good. I watched him in the game against Real Madrid, and there were a couple of moments where maybe it wasn't, but I think he's just going to be the cup goalkeeper. So I think a B.
A B. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I'll give it a B plus, because I think that, first of all, I think Leno is probably an A- goalkeeper, and your starting goalkeeper is basically what you're grading this group on, right? Because you don't have to use your backup. I mean, you could get in a situation where he's injured and then you have problems. I also am not sure Czech was that good last season, so I don't know that those are huge shoes to fill. They are in terms of leadership and experience, and I do wonder how that will impact the group, but I just don't see Martinez factoring that much. I mean, Europa League group stage, maybe early FA Cup and League Cup. But I think one thing that could improve the group this season, unlike last season where Czech had the Europa League, it was just his, I think Leno will keep the Europa League games later in the tournament, assuming we get there. I mean, do you think that's a fair...
Yeah, I mean, I think you should. I think if you're going to have a goalkeeping hierarchy, when games get important in the Europa League, play your best team, play your best goalkeeper anyway. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm on board with that. But it's the Martinez thing which brings it down to a B for me. I think Leno is probably certainly last season was as good as anybody else in the Premier League. The question mark is whether Martinez, if he has to have a run in the Premier League, is going to be able to reach the level we need him to.
Yeah, and I just hope he doesn't, not because I don't like him, just because I think Leno is good, and as long as he stays fit, that's great. Let's go to the defenders.
I see Clive here in the comments says Martinez can play with his feet, and that's massive. I watched him during the US tour. He's really got a beautiful touch. That drill where they fire the ball from deep into the goalkeeper, so one goalkeeper stands in the other half. Man, he takes the ball down so well. So maybe he could be our center half. Who knows?
Always good to get more Clive. In the chats, in the audio. Won't come on camera. Come on camera, coward. There we go.
Phrasing.
More. Yeah. Come on. Oh, well, there's a website for that, but it's not YouTube. All right, I've got the defenders on the screen, and you will notice that Kieran Tierney is in the middle of this matrix, covering what would be Shkodran Mustafi, on the off chance that he is maybe sold, and who knows, maybe that will still happen. But just imagine that Mustafi is sort of there hovering behind all these guys like a storm cloud hanging over the defensive group. What do you give this group of 9 players on the screen?
C.
I mean, that's
C.
2 grades better than last season.
I think, yeah, look, when you look through it, Monreal, right towards the end of his career. Mavropanos, I think we can write him off. Certainly this season anyway. He's going to be out injured. This groin problem that he's got is really troublesome, and it's going to be another 8 weeks, and then he's got to get fit again. And really, I think we should loan him out in January. Kolasinac, not a very good defender. David Luiz could be good. Chambers, could be all right. Holding, we have high hopes for, but there's a lot still to prove from his point of view. Socrates, is a decent central defender, but is going to get yellow cards and probably a red card or two and some suspensions. And then you've got two massively exciting fullbacks. So, yeah, I think based on the center of our defense, a C is about as much as I can give that.
Let me ask you a question from this group. Let's say Socrates, Holding, and Luiz are all fit and all playing at about what we think their level is, not projecting beyond it, just sort of whatever you think their par level is. And we're playing a back four. Which two from that three do you think wind up getting the starting job?
Sorry, I didn't hear. We're playing a back three? Or
No. We're playing a back four, two center backs, all fit, all available, all playing at around their par level. Socrates, Holding, Luiz. Who are the two from that three that get picked? I have no idea.
What I pick or what Emery would pick?
What do you think Emery will pick?
I think he would pick Socrates and Luiz.
Okay. I mean, even knowing that he's considering Holding as a captain and they seem to be pretty impressed with him?
Perhaps. I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I think what it is, it's an area of the pitch where there's an opportunity for somebody to really come in and stake a claim and to make the position their own. So there's nothing set in stone with the center of our defense.
Yeah.
So, if Socrates and Luiz form a decent partnership, great. If it's Holding and Luiz or Holding and Socrates, or if it's Chambers, whatever, it's there for the players to grab the opportunity when it's given to them. So it's just so hard to tell right now because it's also up in the air.
You know what's funny? I mean, I look at that group and I almost can divide it and say I can pick four starters that are a solid B plus group of four, maybe a B, two A minus or A fullbacks. And between Luiz, Holding, and Socrates, you could probably put together a B minus pairing. The rest of them are F minus. And that's the scary thing, right? It's what you have to, and that's maybe harsh on Maitland-Niles, who's not pictured here and probably should be.
Yes, of course. Maitland-Niles and Mustafi as well, who's not there.
He's hiding behind Tierney.
Yeah, it's hiding.
I put the Tierney thing over.
It's fine, but I mean, what do you give the group overall? What's your grade?
I got to give it like a C plus. I think that the upside of what you could start with is B plus-ish, B plus-ish, but what you could wind up with, I mean, the back four for Sunday could be Socrates, Chambers, Nacho, Maitland-Niles, and that's not encouraging.
I think he'll start Luiz.
You do think he will? Well, we'll get to that. That's coming. All right, so we'll move on from this group. We'll start to zip through this because I got a lot of fun things for you here. Midfield.
Okay.
All right. So now, look, I pulled this off their website the club website. That's the I'm talking about. And they have Maitland-Niles listed in this group. So, who knows? But Elneny, Mkhitaryan, Ceballos, Ozil, Torreira, Maitland-Niles, Guendouzi, Xhaka, Willock. I think Mkhitaryan probably is a forward, not a midfielder. But based on the fact that they're putting Mkhitaryan and Ozil in this group, so be it. Elneny might still be sold. Maitland-Niles is probably a defender this season. So it's probably Ceballos, Torreira, Guendouzi, Xhaka, Willock, and maybe Ozil. What do you give this group?
I would give that a B plus. A B plus, I think, because potentially, it's an A plus midfield, potentially. But we have to wait and see what way Guendouzi continues to develop, what way Torreira continues to develop in their second seasons. I'm hopeful that they'll be better than they were. Ceballos, I think, is a really, really smart signing. I'm hopeful that he's going to have an impact this season. Willock, I'm very, very encouraged by. Xhaka, he's not necessarily my favorite player in the world, but I can see that he does have qualities which are important at times. Hopefully he can cut out some of those mistakes. Mkhitaryan, Elneny, I'm sort of meh about both. I think Elneny gets a bit more grief than he actually should. I know he's not the most exciting player in the world, but he's pretty dependable at what he does. He's not going to do much other than keep the ball moving and give it to other players who can do something with it. But as a squad option, I think he's better than he's given a little bit of credit for. But Emery clearly doesn't rate him at all. He only played him 300 minutes or something last season in the Premier League. So I think it's a B+ midfield, but it potentially could be better than that.
Yeah. By the way, I'm just going to stop. I think we got, and I am what they call a YouTube idiot, but I think that Himanshu Taneja just gave us what is called like a super chat or something. So Himanshu, that is super appreciated. Thank you for that. And I wanted to make sure to call that out on the show.
What does that mean?
I'm not totally sure, Andrew. I think it is actual money that was paid as an appreciation for the program, which is,
wow.
I mean, it's like absolutely amazing. So that's why I wanted to thank him for it. But and certainly,
well done,
yeah, Himanshu, thank you. All right, well, look, let's continue here. What I would say about this group, I think it is probably a B, and I think a lot of how this group shapes up depends on two things, right? Like I said this on our podcast. I could see this being an A+ midfield based on a lot of factors that I know nothing about. Like I have Ceballos being our best midfielder this season in my cranium. I know nothing about this guy. He could turn out to be a complete mess. Like, he didn't play a ton for Real Madrid. He did star for Spain U21s. If he is awesome, I think it lifts the midfield tremendously because it adds qualities we have badly missed. But we're projecting. Yeah. Willock looks like a star. Again, preseason can sometimes mean nothing. Totally projecting. Torreira and Guendouzi going into second seasons where you project that they kick on, but it's not a guarantee. The irony is the only player we really know who he is and what we're getting from him is Xhaka. And he's the one that I think is flawed and we need to move away from. So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm agreeing with you about Xhaka, but at least you do have that. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get basically 7 out of 10 most of the time.
You know the problem? I disagree with that.
Ball, but within the 7, you could get like a 5 or a 4 moment or a 0 moment, like against Brighton.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that is the risk reward with Xhaka.
I think you have an 8 or 9 out of 10 deep distributor and like a 2 out of 10 in terms of mobility, defensive awareness, decision making at times, and that's the problem. It's almost a Mustafi type problem in that the things that he's capable of getting wrong can really kill you and really drive you nuts. So yeah, I mean, if Willock, Guendouzi, Torreira, and Ceballos can be the players I think they have in them, I think this can be an A- midfield, but it's largely projection. Do you think Ozil will be a part of, like if we play midfield threes, could you see Ozil being a part of that or not particularly?
It depends. I mean, he did play a 4-2-1-3 during preseason at one point. I can't remember which game, but I remember watching it. And certainly, if he's deploying two, deep lying midfielders or a couple of pivots or whatever you want to call them, then there's room for Ozil behind 3 forwards. Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. I'm curious to see what way he's going to approach the Mesut Ozil situation, because Ozil is, talking up about how, he's settled now and he's happy and he's ready and all this kind of stuff. But he's got to back that up on the pitch. The other part of it, of course, is that he's got to be given the chance to back that up on the pitch. So what Emery decides to do with Ozil, particularly in the 2 games at the end of August, whatever about Newcastle and Burnley, it's, how does he pick the team against Liverpool away? Is he going to play Ozil there? I mean, it would be an absolute massive show of faith in Ozil if he was going to do that. I'm not sure he will, but, and then Tottenham at home. So those 2 games will probably tell us plenty about what Emery is thinking about Ozil and his ability to contribute in the big games this season.
Yeah, and maybe to some extent Newcastle away, a trip that Ozil has not often made, will be an audition of sorts for him to show what he can do. I've got the forwards on the screen. And again, I pulled these from the Arsenal club website. So like, Nelson, for some reason, doesn't have a picture. Saka is not included. Nelson wasn't even included in the first team. I cut and pasted him in there. Mkhitaryan not put in this group. Ozil not put in this group. As I mentioned, Saka not there. Martinelli not listed. So really the group is Lacazette, Aubameyang, Pepe, Nelson, Saka, Martinelli, and maybe Mkhitaryan in this group. What's your letter grade for this one?
I mean, I think you have to give it an A. Based on the first choice players that we have, would definitely... we've got one of the best strikers in Europe in Aubameyang. Lacazette is a reliable goal scorer. I don't think he's a 30 goal a season goal scorer, but he's a 20 goal and 10 assist player. That's what we got from him last season. So if he can repeat that, then that's a lot of goals. Pepe, of course, is hugely exciting. Very enthused to see what he's going to do, and I'm interested to see what way the young attacking players are integrated. I think, I'm banging this drum, and maybe I'm alone in this, and maybe nobody else wants to see it, but I just want to see young players in the Europa League. I don't want to see Aubameyang and Lacazette playing games against FC Gronk or whatever the fuck. There's no need for it, because our priority this year has to be the Premier League in the top four. That's got to be our priority. So if we can keep Lacazette, Aubameyang, Pepe fresh, they're not part of that Thursday, Sunday schedule that's so damaging. I mean, that might be part of it a bit later on in the season, but certainly early in the season, if you're unleashing these guys after they've had a week off, a week between games, you're doing yourself a massive favor there. So in the Europa League group games, give me Martinelli and give me Saka, give me Tyrese John-Jules, give me Reece Nelson, give me Emile Smith-Rowe, give me Joe Willock, give me, whoever we've got that we can play to keep our so-called first team as fit as possible. So that's where I'm really interested to see what Emery does in that sense. And it's an opportunity for those guys to stake a claim.
Yeah.
Some proper minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's essential too, right? Because that's going to determine, I think, how far we go this season. Because if you can find a gem from one of those peripheral players, and you can use the Europa League to discover that Nelson really is ready, or Martinelli really is a star, and you can maybe give Lacazette a rest one game, or Pepe a rest, or Aubameyang a rest. Here's the way I look at the forwards group. If we're only playing three of them, and we're playing Lacazette, Aubameyang, and Pepe, it's an A-plus group. It is. Now, I mean, some of that's projection on Pepe, but I'm just going to say that. Now, the challenge is, and this is where it comes down to how he uses the squad. He needs one more from the forward group to have a good season beyond those three. Whether it's Nelson or Saka or Martinelli or Mkhitaryan or Ozil in that role, he needs someone. Now, you could say, well, that's why we should have kept Iwobi. Separate issue. Totally understand. Again, I think you need someone who gets you 6-7 goals, 5-6 assists, other than what's on the screen right there, Lacazette, Aubameyang, Pepe. And if he can use the League Cup and the Europa League early in the season to try to develop confidence in one of those players and figure out who that player is, then you're golden. Because I don't know that we're always best with Lacazette and Aubameyang on the pitch at the same time. And if he can discover one more player he trusts as a wide forward, he can say, in this game I'm going Aubameyang up top, Lacazette starting on the bench, or vice versa. Right now, I think it's harder for him to do that because he doesn't have that other wide player he really trusts. He's got Pepe, he's got Lacazette, or he's got Pepe, he's got Aubameyang. Who would the third be? He's got to figure out who that guy is. Does that make sense? He's got to find that one other option. Just one. Yeah, well,
that's why giving them minutes in competitive European games and League Cup games will help him do that and help bring on some of those players. Like I looked at, someone like Saka during the US tour, and he's only 17, so we have to be absolutely realistic about what he can contribute and what he can do at that age. But I look at him and I see a player who's ready for some first team minutes. He's physically ready. The way he plays the game is so positive. He always wants the ball. He always wants to do something with the ball. He's not afraid to take risks. He can stand up to the physical challenges of men who are much older than him because he's well developed physically as well. He's quick. He's smart. There's a kid who could, if you give him the minutes in the Europa League, become part of your first team squad. So that's why I think it's really important for him to focus a bit on that.
Yeah. Well said. I think we're in total agreement there. So, all right, we've graded the group. I think one thing we can do real quick is look ahead to Sunday. And I've thrown up just a haphazard shot at the lineup here. And I've got us playing a 4-2-3-1. No idea. I set, obviously, Leno's going to be in goal. Nacho and Maitland-Niles as the fullbacks with Socrates and Luiz as the center backs. Xhaka Guendouzi is the midfield 2. Ozil or Mkhitaryan is the one behind Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Pepe. That's how I have it. I don't know. This is a lot of guessing. I mean, do you think Pepe will start? It's a bit...
No.
You don't?
No, I don't think he will. He might be on the bench, but I think he, remember, he only signed last week. Was it last week? What day was it? Yeah, it was last week at some point, wasn't it? So... and he just flew his holidays in Miami. So he'd been away at the African Cup of Nations and he came back, and I think it would be a risk to start him. I know players are much fitter now than they used to be, and they don't lose, their summer, their fitness during the summer. They don't go away and come back a stone or two overweight because they've been eating pies and drinking pints, Yeah. I don't think Pepe will start. I don't think he will.
Who starts on the... do you think Oba might start on the right then, since we saw that a lot in preseason?
I think Aubameyang will start up front because I'm not sure that Lacazette is going to play because he's got an ankle injury. So I think it will be...
Agreed.
I would be surprised to see Ceballos start.
What about his injury? I thought he had a knock.
No, well, there was no mention of him today in the update, in the injury update. So I'm assuming he's fully fit. So I think it'll be Mkhitaryan. I think Ozil, Aubameyang, and maybe Ceballos in midfield with Xhaka and Guendouzi. Again, Torreira's a little bit late back, and Emery seemed quite keen to protect him last season, didn't he? When he came back late from the World Cup, he eased him into to action. You could make an argument for Reece Nelson to start, but. Yeah, I don't think Pepe's going to start. I don't think Lacazette's going to start.
All to do in the first game.
He had the Emirates Cup. He had an ankle problem.
Yeah.
Before the game, and they played him, and then he had to come off. So,
if he doesn't play, don't you think that would push Emery to want to get Pepe on the pitch just because? He'll have seen him in training, so who knows? I mean, if he's really lighting it up in training, maybe he'll be excited to do that. Maybe he'll want to ease him in. I mean, away at Newcastle is not a particularly easy way to get introduced. But to be fair, Pepe played a lot at Lille on the counterattack, and away to Newcastle, we might have a little more room to operate than at home against a small side, so it could be an opportunity.
Maybe. I'd be disappointed if we went to Newcastle and played, sat deep and just waited to counterattack. I think it is going to be one of our strengths this season, but it would be disappointing if we went there and, camped out, looking to hit them on the break. I'd like us to go there and actually take the game to them because, we have the players, and I think we need to get out of this mindset that being away from home is as difficult as we make it. I think there's got to be a change in the way that we approach games, and I hope to see that on Saturday, or Sunday rather. I just think it's too soon for Pepe to start. If we're going to be sensible about managing players and managing their fitness, we've already got to worry over Lacazette. What if we start him and he does his hamstring in 20 minutes? Nobody would forgive Emery that if he did that. So I think there's got to be an element of common sense, and common sense tells you. You can't really start a player having only had, a week of training after coming back from holidays and playing a summer tournament. So
I guess the scary thing to me, Andrew, is you start to say, well, we're not going to start with Lacazette. We're not going to start with Pepe. And it might be a little too soon for Ceballos to get thrown in the deep end. And all of a sudden, you're starting a pretty weak side away on opening day. I mean, Aubameyang by himself, supported by youngsters like maybe Nelson and Martinelli, or Mkhitaryan and Ozil in forward.
Actually, you know what? I think Joe Willock could start.
That is an interesting one. Do you think he'll do that?
It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Willock started in midfield. If there was a midfield three and Willock was part of it, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I could see that too. Again, I loved Willock's preseason. I think he's a great player who looks like a star. But you start to say no Lacazette, no Pepe, no Ceballos, and you're relying on guys like maybe Nelson gets a start, and maybe Willock gets a start, and Mkhitaryan starting, and your midfield your central defense could be Socrates and Chambers, depending on David Luiz's readiness, Maitland-Niles and Nacho. I mean, for a team that I think has a lot of upside and can be very good this season, it would certainly be a bit of a rough way to start. I'm just going to pop up on the screen here real quick. Scott, who does your By the Numbers column, who does our podcast as well, _that_crab on Twitter, his crab stats look at the game. He has us as 59.5% to win, 19.4% to draw, 21.2% to lose. Most likely outcome for Newcastle is 1 goal.
How does he do that? Like, what's that based on?
So his model, it's hard. So what I will say in his defense, it's his model and he's not here to defend it. I'm not. No. Well, because here's the only problem with it. His model takes into account prior performances, expected goals, shots allowed, big chances against for both teams, things like that.
Okay.
What it doesn't do is it doesn't factor in changes in personnel in the squad. So,
right.
Like, for example, when he did his predictive model on like where we'll finish this season, it doesn't factor in Chelsea losing Hazard and having Lampard as their coach and us getting Pepe. Right. Now, to be fair, when it comes to this particular game,
Scott's in the chat.
Oh, there you go. He's defending his own. I'm in the chat. I think I explained it right, Scott. But what I was going to say, in defense of your model for this game, we may be playing a lineup that looks a little more reminiscent of last season because a lot of the new guys may not start. So we'll see. Let's do this. Let's look at the fixtures. Just the opening fixtures real quick. These are the first 7. Away to Newcastle, home to Burnley, away to Liverpool, home to Spurs, away to Watford, home to Villa, away to United. We did a thing last season. We called it Project 24. Because it was 8 games that we had to win. We felt we could win those 8 games. I think we wound up getting 22 of the points. Isn't that right? From that?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah,
crazy. And that's how we managed to finish 5th. Hooray! But looking at these first 7 fixtures, it's 21 points on offer. A lot of tough games in there. What for you would be success from the first 7 fixtures?
Success from the first 7 fixtures. I mean, I'm looking at. I think we should win our opening 2 games.
6. I like where your head's at.
I'm not sure we're going to get anything against Liverpool.
Okay, that's still 6.
We're going to beat Tottenham.
That's 9.
Put them back up again. Watford away, I think could be. That's difficult. They made a couple of the Danny Welbeck derby.
You could see him giving us all kinds of problems, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. And Ismail Sarr, who they brought in as well from Rennes, who's a good player. But I think at that point, you're looking at it being after the first international break, so we should have a fully fit squad, hopefully. So I'd look for us to beat Watford, beat Aston Villa, and I don't know why we couldn't go to Manchester United in the state that they're in at this moment in time and beat Manchester United.
Holy
so there's my optimistic. My optimistic.
Did you give us 16 from the no? Yeah,
so
16 from 21.
Beaten 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. I've given us.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Maybe I've over-egged this.
So you think we're going to win 6 of those 7 fixtures, huh? I mean, God bless you.
That's what I'm hoping.
It's new season. What?
I'm not making any promises here, people. That's all I can say.
Why be doomy on the eve of the new season? Fine, I'll say 21 points. If we don't get 21 points, I'm coming on here and be furious.
Look,
spitting fire.
I think if we can go through those 7 games and only lose one of them, which I think the one that we're sort of nailed on to lose is Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
If we can avoid defeat in the other games, I'm not saying we should draw them all, but yeah, I mean, maybe you could draw Tottenham, or you draw against Watford, or you draw against United away. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would be good to get off to a flying start.
Look, this is a period that's a really tricky one. No Bellerin, probably no Tierney, no Holding, easing in the new players. Torreira might not play much. I think if you can beat Newcastle, Burnley, Watford, and Villa, and that's no easy feat, especially away to Watford, as we well know. Mm-hmm. And as much as I would love to beat Tottenham and United, if you draw those 2 and lose to Liverpool, that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14. I think if you took 14 points, while that, what I would say, 14 points is the baseline. We got to get 14 points from those fixtures. More than that, I think is is a positive and sets our season on a good trajectory, fewer than though that we are playing catch up already. So, don't lose to Tottenham or United. Probably going to lose at Liverpool. I mean, and there's no disgrace there. Just don't lose 5-1 and then beat the others. I think that would be a really encouraging start. It may not feel encouraging, but I think come the end of the season, we'll look back on that as useful.
Yeah, you just don't want anything that's really damaging. You don't want a 5-1 at Liverpool again. You want to give a good account of yourselves and show that you can learn from getting plastered there last season, that you can go and you can defend. I think that will be quite damaging early in the season. So, yeah, look, it is what it is, but I think we have an opportunity to get away to a good start. I think we should beat Newcastle and we should beat Burnley at home. And after that, who knows? Remember last season we lost our first 2 and went 22 games in all competitions unbeaten. So, we have it in us. But if you can get off to a good start, it might just light the fire and keep the motivation high and what have you.
And look, I mean, I'll hold out hope for taking 21 from those. We'll revisit that when we get back to it. Yeah. Let's finish off with a quick game. This is one that Scott and I played actually, and I think is a good way to sort of look ahead to the season. Over under. Okay. Are you familiar with the gambling term over under?
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
So I said a number, and you say whether the result will be more over that number or under that number.
Sure. Okay.
Now I'm going to set 0.5 numbers because obviously that prevents a tie from being possible. Okay. So, let's start with this. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, 24.5 league goals.
Under.
So you think he will slightly regress from last season?
Slightly, but I think he'll score 25, 30 goals for us, but across all competitions.
Okay. The interesting thing, it'll be curious to see who gets the biggest responsibility for taking penalties this season, because you have to think with VAR, there might be an uptick in penalties. So someone like Lacazette, for example, could wind up taking, scoring 7-8 penalties for us this season and finish with 20 league goals because of it, which... somehow VAR will find a way to not give us penalties.
Well, they shared them out a bit as well, didn't they, last season? Between the two of them, they shared them out. And of course, Pepe, took penalties for Lille last season. That was what everybody said. It's a caveat to his 22-goal season that 9 of them were penalties, as if somehow a penalty isn't a goal or a penalty isn't a demonstration of your ability to score under pressure. I never got that. So
well, and he won most of the penalties too, so there's something for that.
There you go.
How about this? Nicolas Pepe, goals plus assists in the league, over under 19.5.
Goals and assists. Ooh, that's difficult because you think there'll be some responsibility on him and some focus on getting the best out of him in the way that we play. And if we can do that, then potentially, I'm going to say over. Over.
That would be very helpful for our season, I think.
Certainly would.
Yeah, I mean,
certainly would.
I think having a dribbler who pulls defenders away from Aubameyang and Lacazette is going to be really handy. Iwobi was someone who could do that a little bit, but I think Pepe can do that to an even higher level and with better distribution. So
hey, Matthew Knight has just rinsed you in the comments here because he said Elliot, Aubameyang got 22 league goals last season, so he wouldn't regress even if he got 24.
I'm pretty sure that I said 22, and there's no way you could check that because there's no record of that.
Because I'm recording it here. I've got the audio right here.
I don't know what you're talking about. You know what? This is a deep fake. Is what this is. It's a deep fake. I've been doctored. Well, how about this?
I imagined Paul as a young man with a full head of brown hair. Where's Paul?
He is not a young man with a full head of brown hair, I can tell you. He is a quite fit older gentleman who runs a lot, mainly away from my takes. But let's talk at the other side of the pitch. How about defensively? Over under 48.5 league goals conceded.
Oh, under.
Now that's a regression. That I know, or I mean an improvement.
No, that's an improvement.
Improvement, right? Yeah,
it's fewer. It's better.
It's right. Yeah, I understand how that works. All right. Let's say Ceballos over under 25.5 league starts.
Under. Yeah.
Okay. Joe Willock. Go ahead.
I don't believe any of this stuff that we've promised him 40 games. Don't believe it.
Well, the funny thing is he could get 20 league starts and still get 40 games. Well,
of course, because he could play Cup, he could play Europa League. I don't believe that you can promise a player you will play 40 games when what if he's completely out of form? Well, you don't just play him because you promised him games. That's absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
I think what he might have said is, look, you could play 40 games this season, if you're on form and if you settle in and if you work hard. That he might have said that, but I don't think there's any way you can just promise, especially a player who's only going to be with you for a season. You can't promise him games like that.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, but I do think he'll play a lot. I think one of the advantages of playing him a lot is if he plays well enough, I don't rule out the possibility that we could sign him. It's not out of the question. So it could be in everybody's best interest. Look, I think he has an argument to be our best midfielder, so it would be nice to see him play a lot. How about this? Over under Premier League starts for Willock plus Nelson plus Martinelli plus Saka.
Jesus.
17.5 starts.
So
in the
between
Premier League.
those four players, I'm gonna say over.
Really? You think it's gonna be Willock that gets him?
Yeah, it's Willock and Nelson. And I guess a lot will depend on how our season goes as well, though. If it's tight and if we're in good shape for the top four, I think he'll err more on the side of experience in the Premier League. Whereas if it's if we're not going to finish in the top four, he might as well just play the kids because he's getting sacked. So
yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, I think last season I can't even think of a kid that really played in the Premier League. I'm trying to think. I mean, Mavropanos got a start.
Guendouzi would be the obvious one.
Right, yeah, but he didn't really reach down to the academy at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he didn't, and you can sort of understand why that was the case.
Well, I mean,
you can see.
Hopefully, one of those kids makes themselves undroppable. That would be great. If it's Nelson or if it's Willock, I think that has a chance to improve us. Hey, super quick question, just getting off topic of the over-under for a second. When Bellerin comes back, do you think there's any chance that Maitland-Niles gets playing time in midfield, or do you think his days as a midfielder for Arsenal are maybe behind him?
Well, I mean, did he ever have days as a midfielder for Arsenal?
That's the position he was, right?
Why do we talk about him?
He played midfield against Southampton in the FA Cup, granted against a B team for Southampton, and was really, really good. It might have been the only time he's ever played midfield for us, but he was great. I just wonder if he doesn't have a big future as fullback for Arsenal, does he get a chance to show what he can do at the position that he was brought up playing, or is that gone for him? Well,
here's the thing. He wasn't brought up playing central midfield.
Well, what do
he
I
played
know?
as a wide right player.
Will he score over 24 goals?
He will. He'll score 50. No, I mean, he went on loan to Ipswich and was played as a winger. And last season, he said himself he wants to be a winger. He wants to be a forward player. And I think it's only because Arsene Wenger did that thing that he does with young players where he says, he's going to be a central midfielder. He's going to be a defensive midfielder. I remember very clearly after we signed Callum Chambers, Arsene Wenger said he's going to be a defensive midfield player. And he's never played defensive midfield for us. I know he played there for Fulham last year. He did a lot of that with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, where he said, he's going to be a central midfield player, which, he might well turn out to be, but he wasn't that very often at Arsenal. And it was Wenger who said that about Maitland-Niles, which just sort of implanted that into everybody's head. But we have not really seen him play there. I think he'll be probably the understudy for Hector Bellerin. I think when Bellerin is back and when he's fully fit, I think Maitland-Niles will spend most of his time on the bench.
Yeah.
Once Hector's back to form.
Yeah, I was just sort of curious because, I mean, he is a player that has played a lot, and you wonder, where's his Arsenal career going? Because if Bellerin's here to stay. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I don't. I think there's a good player in Maitland-Niles. I do. I think he's got some really good qualities. He's very quick. He's good on the ball. I'm not necessarily sold on him as a fullback, but I don't think, he's there because we don't have anyone else to do that job. That's the only reason he's there. If we had a proper right back, I don't think Maitland-Niles would be playing. And I think there's just an element now where, in terms of his career and his own development, it's about where is he going to play for the rest of his career? Is it going to be as a fullback? I don't think that's what he wants. I don't think that's what he wants based on what he said last year, that he sees himself as somebody who can do a job further forward.
Yeah.
So I just feel like there's this air of, well, he's there until Bellerin gets back and then, he can go to one. So it's about where he wants to play. And whether he gets the chance to play in that position for Arsenal remains to be seen. So, I just think there's sort of a question mark over him in terms of his long-term position. It's not over his talent, because I think he's very clearly a talented footballer. I just don't think he necessarily wants to be a fullback, but he's there because we don't have any other option.
Yeah, well said. Well, I just want to point out Jan Ostergaard, by the way, with the message says, can't support you otherwise, so this is my chance with the super chat. Jan, thanks, man.
Done,
love you. Yeah, well done. And I mean, I do know on your side, Andrew, you have people that support you on Patreon. We do as well. Obviously, super appreciative and love the people that do that. And I know that some people have said in the past, hey, I really can't. It's not in the budget, or it's not for me right now. And I think I just want to make sure that I emphasize that these free shows on YouTube and the ones we do on the podcast and stuff, like, absolutely love people showing up in the chat, being a part of it, participating. So however you get involved and however you participate, we're all in this together. New season coming up, and we're all super excited for it. And there'll be lots of ways for us to all interact, do shows, do podcasts, things like that. So I'm only speaking on behalf of me there, Andrew, but I'm sure you second it, that just the way everybody gets involved in their own way is a huge part of the reason why I enjoy doing it.
For sure. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And, whether you're doing it online or whether you're doing it in real life and you're meeting people, the best thing about doing what I do and what you do, I'm sure, are the connections that you make with people and the chats you have and the discussions and the debates and everything else. It's great to talk to people who are just interested and happy to have a conversation rather than someone who's calling you a cunt. Which happens a bit too frequently these days, but you can ignore those. Than others. But it just, well, look, it speaks the voice of experience there. But I just mean that, it makes you appreciate, the vast majority of people who are out there who just want to chat about this fucking crazy football club we all support. So.
Yeah, well said. Well, I mean, I and that goes obviously for meeting you. I had a fantastic time when we hung out in LA. As a quick funny story, obviously, I had never met Andrew in person. Obviously, I'd seen him on videos and online, and we'd chatted quite a bit. But we're staying in the same hotel, and my room wasn't ready yet, and so I went down to the gym to work out. It was my one day of the year, I guess. And I'm in the elevator doing the thing you do after you worked out, trying to pump up the arms a little bit, suck in the gut, look impressive, listen to my music, kind of look badass, coming back from the gym. Hey, look at me. That's the one, Andrew. That's it. It's that thing. And then sure enough, the door opens and me and another person get off the floor. And that's when I realized I've just been doing this in front of you. And that is literally how we met, with me trying to then recover my embarrassment from the
it was funny because, I got into the lift and there was this sweaty guy with a towel, and I was like, well, I'll just stand here and stare at the doors as they close and do that thing people do in lifts. And I, something crossed my mind, but I said, no, I'm not doing that thing where you look back again and just, and then I got out of the lift and you called me, and it's very strange, isn't it, to have come all that distance and then we meet in a lift.
Yeah. And then
fun times. We had a massive drink. Yes. We had a massive, the biggest margarita I've ever had in my life. Yeah. It was amazing, I have to say. I've come back to Ireland and they do puny cocktails here. It's ridiculous. You can't go and get a massive margarita like we got there up in Venice Beach. It was delicious.
Yeah.
And it was a good time. We had good times.
Those were good times. Well, let's just finish on this then. The last thing, our last over-under before we say goodbye. And I'm sparing everybody. Wait, real quick. Blog's hitting it in the fields again. Oh, I got to get the name right. I am so sorry for what I'm about to do. Amitabh Bachchan.
That's pretty good, I think.
From India, love from India, and love back at you, obviously. And love to everybody who's in this chat. But thank you so much for that. And all right, so before we get out of here, over under 4.5th place in the league. League finish 4.5th place. So obviously, if you're saying over, it's top 4. If you're saying under, it's below top 4. So 4.5th place, over under.
Over. Fourth place.
Okay. I'm going to say over as well. I think third place because fuck Spurs. Because fuck them. You know?
Yeah. Look, you know, we when I was doing my season preview, this season, I look back at the preview I did for Emery's first season, and what I said at the start was like, you know, we finished 13 or 15 points off the top 4 in Wenger's final season. I said, if Emery can get us, you know, if he can close that gap, none of us really had any, I don't think anybody was expecting a top 4 finish last season based on, you know, how far we'd fallen, that we should have got it, of course, and we made a mess of it, and we don't need to dredge over old ground. But the fact is that he did close the gap. You know, I'm not making any excuses for him, but we closed the gap. And I think we've done the kind of business this summer which could help us close the gap even further, even though the gap is only 1 point. I think we can get more points this season than we did last season. And I think if we do, then we're going to be in the top 4. So I think it'll be 4th. Mm-hmm. And maybe it'll be Spurs who don't finish in the top 4. Maybe there'll be somebody else. Who knows?
Well, I would love that. I think that would make it an excellent season. I have a friend who wants to just say goodbye to everybody. He didn't get into the show today, but Shodran, sorry we didn't get you on earlier. Sorry, I wanted to be on show to say back on top, Arsenal. New season, we're back on top. We're back on top. I be there raising my hand for offside. I be there diving in. Screw the VAR. I say screw VAR. Back on top, Arsenal. Back on top. Back on top. Back on top. Okay, that's Shodran. He usually makes a longer appearance there, Andrew, but we didn't have time. We ran out of time today, so that's all it's going to be. I mean, that's just it. He stops by sometimes. You want to say goodbye to everybody? It was great talking to you.
Great talking to you, Elliot, as always, and thank you, everybody who's in the chat there. Sorry I couldn't contribute as much as I would like, but I have this weird thing where I can't. I don't know whether to look at the camera or to look at my laptop. You know, some of us aren't experienced in live TV broadcasting. Some of us. So, no, great. Thank you. I hope people enjoyed it. And look, we'll do this again for sure during the season. I'm happy to come on whenever you want.
Yeah, it'd be a pleasure. And yeah, I will tell a story another time, but basically I was doing a live TV show for 4 straight hours. And for 4 straight hours, the producer in my ear read me jokes from a dirty book of jokes in my ear the entire time during 4 hours. So that was not fun. Real quick, Srikar Panugati with the super chat. Thank you so much, guys. This has been a lot of fun. Obviously, you can follow Andrew on Twitter at Arseblog. You can read him at Arseblog. He's the Arseblog. I mean, that's why it says underneath him, OMG, it's Arseblog. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We love you. We are so excited for the new season. It's back. Football is back. Unfortunately, the transfer window is closed, but we do get to do football. So, more than anything, I just hope you're excited for a new season. I hope we have a great season together. We'll do lots of good shows. So up the Arsenal, fuck Spurs, fuck all those other cunts. It's all about us. We're finishing in the top 4. We're going to have a great season. We love you, and we'll talk to you next time. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Newcastle 9.